Not to go too far behind the scenes here, but in a group chat that both Billy D, who is a part of the Pineapple Boys, who is filling in for Mac today, he and I are both in, but he shared a photo, proud of himself, for parallel parking.
I sure did. It was tough.
Look, it's tough, but if you have the feel of it, you should never be that proud of it. My big issue is that, much like I believe the character's name is Ruby in Major League 2,
Hmm.
I have the issue of sometimes I get the yips.
Oh, Rube Baker.
Rube. Yeah, Ruby Baker. What did I say?
It's Rube, not Ruby.
But yeah, so sometimes it's much like Austin Powers trying to pull out of that little hallway where if I can't get it on that first angle, it's not even in my head. I just out of nowhere can't park.
I'm like George Costanza. I could make a living parallel parking, and today I don't care what anybody says. Like there was like a 6 inches on the front, 6 inches on the back.
Isn't it kind of cheating though because we all have cameras in our car?
I don't use them though. I do not use them. I
I feel
don't.
like the crowd right now is saying bullshit. They're all calling
No.
you out.
No. I drove trucks for like a roofing company, and like you have to use the mirrors. It's more accurate.
Yeah, but the cameras are easier. New
Yeah,
things
that's
are
true.
better. New things
Yeah,
are always better.
yeah, I guess so.
One, two, three, yeah! Goo. Jaws 3. Goo. King of Queens. Goo. Meryl Streep. Entertainment.
Goo. And once again, Mac is out, but filling in for Mac today is, like I said, Billy D from the Pineapple Boys, formerly PCP. And when Mac is away, Goo gets to do whatever the H he wants. So today I am going to geek out with someone who I think has a very similar appreciation for this art that I do. And today we're not doing best or any kind of a top 10, top 20, but I'm just talking voice actors, voice acting, something that I do. And Fryer mentioned this on last Friday's podcast of he doesn't get swept up in it. He can't tell the difference between good and bad voice acting, which I think is preposterous.
I mean, you're an audio guy. I'm a video guy, and audio is the first, last, and only not line of defense, in my opinion, to make a good video.
Mhm.
So when I hear bad audio, it doesn't matter if it's audio acting, it takes me out of everything. If you're a good voice actor, you lend so much credibility to everything. It brings you in so much deeper, and it's more fun when it's like a better guy doing it.
And I think that visually, it can only do so much because the voice acting is what brings certain characters to life. And look at so many voice actors now that when you're reading something with this character, that's the voice that you hear.
Yeah. Well, Fryer's a pictures and word guy. That's, I think, his problem.
He doesn't hear any voices in his head.
Imagine it's just all
It's
monotone.
all monotone. It's all like when you put something into Word and it just has that like that monotone voice spitting it back at you. So I'm going to start this off, Billy. We're just going to ping pong back and forth. And I kind of have these categorized in a certain way that, like, I'm going to pay some homage here to the OGs, to the greats of all time that everyone's heard of a million times. But at the top of everyone's list is the man of a thousand voices, and that is Mel Blanc, who pretty much voiced every effing Looney Tune and then a bunch of other cartoons in the 60s and 70s like Woody Woodpecker and Barney Rubble.
Yeah, he had obviously probably the most range that we're gonna cover on this list. There's a few other guys who do, Simpson stuff who have a lot of
Mm.
range, but I mean, he did legitimately, I think, almost all of them.
Yeah, I think if you look at the voice thing, like, you know how when you type in so and so's name, characters, it's his face in the middle and then just every Looney Tune around his face. And as they've recasted all of these Looney Tunes, of course, Blanc has passed away, they've needed several actors to do it.
Well, yeah, because he did everything from like the Tasmanian Devil to Bugs Bunny, which couldn't be like really more different.
Daffy
So
Duck, Tweety Bird, Sylvester, like he did all of them.
yeah, it's crazy to think about
Mhm,
it. And when you're a kid, you don't think about it at all. It's
mhm.
just washing over you. So now to have the appreciation, because I'll do some VO work, you do VO work, and just to like get the right inflection on a single line can
Mhm.
take a little while. And he was doing like the cartoons, and cartoons were more plentiful when we were kids. They pumped them out way faster.
Couple other OGs here. That's right. I'm saying OG. Fucking sounding real cool. But Jim Henson and Frank Oz. Jim Henson, not necessarily animation, but puppetry. He's done Kermit, Rolf, Ernie, Guy Smiley. And then Frank Oz is kind of like the Hank Azaria of the Muppets, where he filled in all the other characters for Henson with Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Animal, Sam the Eagle, and then Sesame Street wise, Cookie Monster, Bert, Grover, and then what he's most known for, I would say, Yoda.
Oh, he's Yoda. I didn't know he did a lot of those, so that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Who did Waldorf and Stadler? I love those guys.
Well, I'm not sure who did those guys on the original show. I can tell you that in Muppet Babies in the 80s, Dave Coulier did them.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. I didn't even think of him on this list, actually, either.
I know,
Not that
because I was going through all of like
Yeah.
the cartoons and stuff. I'm like, well, voice acting, you're still puppeteering. It's a bit, and obviously a lot of these characters have done animated specials as
Mhm.
well. Who do you
Yeah,
got
no, I
there?
mean, these were the voices of our childhood, and they were
Mhm.
mainly like 5 people.
Who do you got, Billy?
So I started off with what I know the best, and that's The Simpsons. I don't know like how many people
Mhm.
are watching this, but Harry Shearer, he did Flanders, Skinner's, Smithers, Mr. Burns, Dr. Hibbert, a bunch of other ones. And then is it Dan Castellana?
Dan Castellaneta, who is pretty
Castellaneta.
much just Homer, but he has, let's face it, maybe the most famous cartoon voice of all time.
Well, he actually does Quimby, Willie, Barney,
Okay.
and Krusty too. And then, Hank Azaria does, like you said, he kind of plays the rest of the field where
He
does
does
a
everybody.
bunch of
He's-
characters.
He's the rest of Springfield.
Mo, Wiggum, Carl, Frank, and I think they no longer do a Pooh, but he did a Pooh. So these
Yes.
3 guys are mainly almost all the voices other than the other Simpsons who were kind of played by other people, but they fill out basically the cast of Springfield. Yeah, and then I have John H. Benjamin, who's one of my favorite comedic ones. He's done Bob's Burgers, obviously, but what I like him best in is Archer. His delivery in
Yes.
Archer, and that's the thing too, where you don't think about delivery for a cartoon character, but it's as important as a live actor.
So Archer, Bob's Burgers, and then also he provided the voice of the vegetable can in Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, I never actually have seen that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Would it be too far past now because it's such a cult comedy classic that now you might watch it kind of jaded?
No. I'm not usually
Okay.
like that. There's very few things I'm like that with. Is it a cult comedy classic at this point, or is this one of
I
those
would
things
say so.
Davey's going to get mad at?
No, I would say because it didn't make any money at the
Yeah.
beginning. And then the people that love the David Wayne stuff, Michael Showalter, Michael Ian Black, they've all flocked to it. And Paul Rudd's great in it. Elizabeth Banks also great
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
I love her.
Okay, so let me go with some other of the, not necessarily the older, but they have been doing this for a long time. I think one of my favorite ones, and he does a lot of Disney stuff, is Jim Cummings, who is the voice of Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Darkwing Duck, Pete, that is Goofy's nemesis, Cat from Cat Dog, the Tasmanian Devil now. He also voiced Bonkers in that Bonkers show from the 90s. And I think more impressive than anything else, he is the voice, the singing voice of Scar in The Lion King. So what he has to do there is replicate what Jeremy Irons does with his with his speaking voice, and then sing like that.
That's pretty crazy because that doesn't seem like it's sung by someone who is different. Also, the fact again that this is just a guy who was a big part of my childhood without even really knowing it. Like Darkwing Duck was one of my favorite things of all time, and his range is also crazy because Darkwing Duck is like a goofy kid's voice, and then to sing in that deep voice of Jeremy Irons is kind of crazy.
Another guy is Rob Paulson. He's been on the podcast before. He is Animaniacs. He voiced Yakko. He is Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. He has been in 2 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shows, once as Raphael in the 80s, and then he was Donatello in the 2011 show, and then he's Carl in Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah, I had him and Tress McNeely, the woman who plays Dot.
Oh, yes.
She
She's
does
also very good. Yeah.
Angus Skinner as well.
Yeah, no, so what's great about him, and then I'm blanking on who does the voice of Wacko, But they essentially, and this is what Hank Azaria always talks about, is you take voices that you know, and then you kind of play with them to make them
Ooh.
more unique. And it's not necessarily an impression; it's a new character based off of a classic voice.
Are they saying like voices they know, like famous people or like their
Yes,
mom?
like famous
Oh,
voices, tweak
well,
it a
yeah,
bit, and then you make a new character out of it.
because Wacko is basically a Beatle.
Wacko is pretty much Paul McCartney.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
So then I also had, and I put a few of these people here that are just like voice people in general, but like
Mhm.
James Earl Jones,
Yes.
and he does so much with his voice, and Darth Vader is a character that's like humanized, obviously, but like that voice is one of the most iconic voices, and he's popped up in other stuff. He's
AT&T.
yep. And then what is he in The Lion King? He's
Mufasa.
he's Mufasa.
Now, I'm
So like,
talking specifically 94. He's great in
mhm,
94. They brought him back for the live action
mm,
Disney one that came, and you can tell that he's older. Like, people lose a little fastball on their voice. We didn't need that.
yeah, no, I didn't actually see that one. I've kind of stayed away from all the live action. I do want to check out Aladdin, but
Aladdin was pretty good.
him in 94, like that's as
Mhm.
iconic as it gets for a voice actor.
Tara Strong, who is pretty much in every show, every
Mhm.
animated show since like the mid 90s. And also, she's Miss Minutes now in the MCU. She was that in Loki, but she's been Harley Quinn and Batgirl in different Batman either video games or shows. She's Timmy in the Fairly Odd Parents, like I spoke about,
Mhm.
having a woman voice a young boy. She's in My Little Ponies, and she is the blue Powerpuff Girl. I'm blanking on her name. Bubbles.
Ah. Speaking of Harley Quinn, I think it's Matt Oberg, is it? The guy who plays Kite Man?
Oh yeah.
Like,
I'm like,
that's
who are you?
just
How would I have possibly have Matt Oberg? But yes, go ahead.
But like that's just to me an example of a guy who adds so much to the character because his
Mhm.
voice is animated in the sense of like it goes up and down and flows, and like
Yeah.
he's a character obviously because he's Kite Man, but also that voice, it's just got that squeakiness to it. And in a deeper pitch of that kind of guy is
Mhm.
Patrick Warburton, who does Joe
Yes.
Swanson and
Yeah.
Kronk, are two of the ones he's like most well known for. But that like that I can't do it, but like
Okay,
that
a little
like
bit deeper. Yes.
yeah, but, like, he
Yeah.
can, like, raise it up and, like, crack his voice, so it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and if we're talking other Harley Quinn, you just brought up Harley Quinn. Kaylee Cuoco is actually
Mhm.
pretty good in the new show. She's not my favorite Harley Quinn, but I think she plays that role well for that show. And then Arlene Sorkin is the original voice of Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series. Pretty much came up with that original voice that they've played with since.
Yeah, and if we wanna just talk Batman the Animated Series now, we might as well get to it because these are, I know,
Yes.
2 of our favorite with
Mhm.
Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, which, you know, we're watching X-Men '97 right now where we don't really love the voices as much, but
I'm
those 2.
50-50 on them. I feel like some of them are kind of growing on me, and not to get too far into X-Men 97, but I do think that some of them are growing on me.
Rogue has stepped it up, like,
Yes.
she's her delivery's been really good, but as a kid, I know for you, as for me, this is the best telling of Batman until we got
Yes.
into, like, our adult years, and the voices of these 2, the Bane
Mhm.
2 Batman and the Joker, are as iconic as it gets, and I didn't realize how, like, many roles Mark Hamill had in voice acting, but, like, he's so good.
He's unbelievable. And not to, knock someone down to build someone up, but I have recently seen the test voicing of the original Joker was supposed to be Tim Curry.
Ooh.
And I mean, granted, we know what Mark Hamill sounds like now,
Mhm.
so it's tough, but it doesn't have the same pull. It doesn't have any of that same feel. Like Mark Hamill's Joker is the voice that I hear, whereas I think that Tim Curry, what they gave us in that little short, not great.
Yeah, he's more of like a different kind of voice too, because I feel like it's hard to take the British out of his voice a little bit as well.
He's great as Nigel Thornberry.
Yeah, and he's great in everything. Like
Yeah.
he's in my favorite movie of all time, Clue, and his voice is great. But Mark Hamill just has that like
Yes.
you can feel like he's crazy. You know what I mean? You can
Also,
feel.
so I love watching videos of people doing their voice acting, like behind the microphones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I would say, because Bradley Cooper doing Rocket Raccoon is actually phenomenal. Like he gets down, he really gets. Mark Hamill doing it, he looks like an insane person.
Yeah, no, you can feel it in his
Yes.
voice that he's going for that craziness. And then Kevin Conroy as Batman
Kevin Conroy, yes.
is like that's what I think of. That's what I'll always think of. That's the voice.
Yeah.
And they've done some, that's not voice acting, it's just acting when, they've done it in the, the newer movies. They can't find that right Batman
That
voice.
balance of like back and forth on the voice.
Yeah.
I also, because I did do like, full shows and movies that I think nailed like every character, and Batman the Animated Series is in there. Arlene Sorkin. Ephraim Zambalist, I believe is how it's pronounced, but he is the voice of Alfred. He's fantastic in that. Andrea Barbeau, Diane Pershing, and many, many more. But if we're going to go back to some of the other ones here, Billy West, who is the voice of Doug Fry and Professor Farnsworth in Futurama, Ren and Stimpy, and the Red M&M.
Yeah, that's just another guy with that built for cartoony. Like, I'm wondering, like, when they went to acting school, if they were like, you're a voice actor. You know what I mean? Because one of my friends, I told him for years he should be. You just hear their voice and like, that's a voice for a cartoon, and he is that guy.
But not only that, so he's got it's a pretty fun voice, but the way that he delivers some of his stuff in Futurama leads to some pretty depressing stuff.
No, he does. He can also like sap it. He's almost like a cartoon Zach Braff.
Yes. E.G. Daily, who was the voice of Tommy Pickles in Rugrats, Buttercup, and Powerpuff Girls, and she also played live action Dottie in Pee-wee.
Okay. Now I'm gonna go back to like a Family Guy here, and recently he's had a smash hit with Ted. Yeah. And I know he kind of does like the same voice all the time, but Seth MacFarlane's voice acting is phenomenal.
No, he does the same voice kinda with Peter and Ted. The rest of his voices are pretty good. And like we just said with the Hank Azaria stuff, it is impressions that he does that he kind of switches up for his certain characters. Where so he does Peter, Quagmire, Stewie, Brian, and then on American Dad, he does Stan and Roger. So like Roger is just a Paul Lynde impression.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
It's so good. It's such a good voice to have.
But then you kind of just cracked it like a voice actor would. But like Ted carries the show with that Boston accent and his ability to just hit the no R and just he can carry a scene with his like delivery, which I think is super impressive.
And then my final one here for just, people known for a lot of roles is Troy Baker, who you mentioned Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill for their roles as Batman and the Joker. He's been doing both of those characters in recent Batman works where he plays both Batman and the Joker.
That's kind of crazy because those are tough things to do. I always find that super impressive too, where they have the roles that are like right back to back, like Rick and Morty when it was played by Justin Roiland. Like he's going back and forth like instantly.
Yeah. Now let me rip off some, these all look like Disney. Yes, these are all Disney actors, pretty much known for one voiceover role, but in that one voiceover role, they fucking crushed it. Jeremy Irons as Uncle Scar. Robin Williams, who I think changed the game with Aladdin as the genie. He was the one who said, hey, it's cool for big stars to be in these movies. Jason Lee as Buddy Pine / Syndrome in The Incredibles is, I think, one of the best that Disney's ever had, yet no one ever talks about it.
Agree. That movie is obviously, I don't want to say incredible, but it's awesome and the voice acting is great.
He also pops up quite a bit on some other animated shows. He's on We Bare Bears, or he was on We Bare Bears. Vincent Price as Rat Ratigan is, I think, my favorite my favorite Disney animated voiceover. He is so good in that movie.
I knew you were going to say that, and I thought of Vincent Price before this as for this like podcast, but I didn't think of this until I looked it up and saw this because he's the voice in Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yeah, so he does a lot of like voice-over work, not necessarily as like an animated character. Because he would always do those television specials for Halloween, all those spooky stuff, and he's in a bunch of older horror movies. But
that's
I think
voice acting.
It is, and him as Rat Ratigan lends to one of the spookier, creepier Disney movies.
No, it's great. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be on the list anyways. Yes. A couple of my quick ones. Tom Kenny, the guy who does SpongeBob.
Yes. Yes.
Nick Kroll and John Mulaney basically just tag everybody in Big Mouth is cast really well. It's all they just seem to get like the celebrity to fit the character or
I'll
vice
also say with
versa.
Kroll too, he voices a lot of German characters in other
He
stuff.
does, but like Coach Steve is one of the
Yes.
funniest ones, and also the old hormone monster
Yes.
is really funny too. Like he literally makes you laugh out loud. Kelsey Grammer, anytime he does voice acting, I know
Mhm.
he's hashtag you're a beast. And he's obviously great as Sideshow Bob. And then would we consider James Brolin
Yeah, he's
voice
pretty
acting?
much, but he's also the mocap of the
Yeah.
character in Thanos, but everything that he puts into the character, obviously everyone that worked into the character behind the scenes as well, but they made it feel like a real character. It wasn't just a Grimace monster out there. It felt like a real alien on the screen.
Agreed. And then one of my favorites from my childhood, great in Law and Order, Jerry Orbach as Lumiere. Like
Oh, yes.
just a random New York kind of guy just playing a little French candle.
Yeah. Some other Disney ones here. Ed Asner as Carl Fredricksen in Up. He's fantastic in that. Pat Carroll as Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Mhm.
And another really underrated one, sneaky great, Eartha Kitt as Yzma in The Emperor's New Groove. And of course, we know
Oh.
that Pierce had sex with her in a airplane bathroom.
It's very
That's a
true.
Community joke.
And speaking of another thing we love, Jason Mantzoukas obviously is great, and he pops up all over the place. He is really good in Invincible, even though that show's kind of gone down a little bit. But like his voice acting, his voice in general is just fun.
Okay, so let me get into this category right now. So you just mentioned Mantzoukas. You've already mentioned H. John Benjamin. This is a category that I call I know it's them and I don't care.
Mhm.
And that is Jim Rash. Anytime that Jim Rash pops up anywhere,
Riddler.
I love it. I don't care. I'm like, I know that's Jim Rash and I don't care. So he is the Riddler in Harley Quinn. He was in the Mike Tyson Mysteries and he was a voice in DuckTales.
Yeah, he's just so much fun all over, and like you can feel that's another guy. You feel his personality in his
Yes.
voice.
Kristen Schaal, who you might know from Flight of the Conchords, but she is the daughter in Bob's Burgers,
Mm.
the one
Oh.
with the hat.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's
Gilbert-
also Gravity Falls.
Yes. Gilbert Gottfried in Aladdin. You obviously
mean-
know he's playing Iago, but I enjoy him every single time. Someone that's actually been in a bunch of stuff, but you know his voice every time that you hear him is John DiMaggio, who is the voice of Bender in Futurama.
Oh yeah, he's great. Of another very, very distinctive voice. And Bender,
Mm-hmm.
even though I don't like Futurama a ton, every time I watch, he is the funniest part.
And then finally, Chris Parnell.
Oh,
Anytime you hear a Chris Parnell character, you're like, that's Chris Parnell.
because he plays a great role as like a dum dum in Archer,
Yeah.
and then like every time he pops up, he as an actor, it's that Leo Spaceman voice all the time. Like,
Yes.
not quite sure where it's going. He's always kind of stupid. And then R.I.P. You're wearing his shirt. Phil
Oh.
Hartman.
I forgot to write that one down. Yes,
Yeah.
Phil Hartman, someone that every time you know it's him, it doesn't matter. His delivery is always perfect.
He has like some of the exact same voices on The Simpsons. Like they don't
Yes.
even Lionel Hutz
Doesn't matter.
and
It doesn't matter.
and Troy McClure are the same voice, and you don't care.
Yeah, and even looking at he was in the Brave Little Toaster. He does a bit of like a Jack Nicholson voice to him,
Oh, yeah.
but that's also. And speaking of the Brave Little Toaster, John Lovitz, bring in John Lovitz, also
No, I
not
love
bad.
John
I don't love it, but I'm not gonna leave it.
Didn't you make a shirt?
Yep, John Lovitz or leave it.
Yeah.
And then I think an actor that gets too much shit for his voice work, and yes, it's been diminished returns as we've gone along, and yes, he's cast in every voiceover or voice acting role there is, but I don't think Chris Pratt is a bad voice actor.
He's not. I just don't like. He's like when I hear John Cena doing a car commercial, it works. Like
Mhm.
I'm never like it just feels right. Like it doesn't stand out. It's like good officiating. Like I
Yeah,
don't
like-
notice it's him.
I don't love him in Mario. I think other people stand out above him, but as I was rewatching the Lego movie the other day. He's great in that. And I understand why other people said, "Oh, I want to cast him because of this."
Yes, and shout out Lego movies with Will Arnett. He is something special in those movies.
Also very good. Now I have here just a category of full shows and movies that I think were perfectly cast. I already mentioned Batman the Animated Series. I think for Nickelodeon, one of their best shows casting wise is Hey Arnold, who they voiced or they casted all age appropriate children for the cast.
That's tough too, because eventually they're going to grow out of those
And they
roles.
changed them. Yep. As they grew out, they changed them. Also, the anchor of the show was Grandpa, voiced by Dan Castellaneta.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense now that you say it. That was a little bit like out of my time. That's like
Yeah.
probably right smack in your time, but I still caught the end of it. All of them were great, and Nickelodeon. Their voice acting doesn't stand out as much to me as some of the other networks, like
Mhm.
Fox.
Fox, WB Kids, all
Mhm.
those ones. Fox more than anything, I would say, actually. You're right on that. So I'm not saying that this is better than the first one, but I think the voice acting of the newer DuckTales that came out 5 or 6 years ago makes it a watchable show. Now, I have watched every episode with my son, and I enjoy it because of the voice cast. Where, yes, you have David Tennant as Scrooge, who's very good, but Danny Pudi, Ben Schwartz, Bobby Moynihan as Huey, Dewey, and Louie are all fantastic. Beck Bennett as Launchpad McQuack, also very
Oh.
good. Kate Micucci or Makuki, I don't know how to pronounce her name, as Webby, fantastic. And then Jim Rash popping up.
Yeah, those are all like very recognizable voice actors, and even like Bobby Moynihan, I don't think of him as a voice actor, but he's a perfect like child duck.
Well, so like Bobby Moynihan also is one of the bears in We Bear Bears that ran for like 100 episodes too. He's done quite a bit of voice acting.
All right, that makes sense because he's got that goofy voice.
He does. I think the movie, Disney-wise, that was casted the best would be The Lion King. And in the 94, you had James Earl Jones, Jeremy Irons, Nathan Lane, Ernie Sabata. Jonathan Taylor Thomas does not get enough credit for young Simba. I think that Matthew Broderick as older Simba, bag of milk, not great. Young Simba, fantastic.
Yeah, and Nathan Lane as, was Timon?
He was Timon, yes.
Yeah, phenomenal. Like, I love Nathan Lane in everything, and again, that's one of those ones where, like, he's probably not as big a voice actor as the others, but if I ever heard Nathan Lane's voice, I'm never going to say no.
And then the three hyenas, Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings.
Oh, I didn't even know all that.
Yeah. Then we go on to, now, I would say the second one might be better than the first, but the voice acting, the cast for Shrek of Michael Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, John Lithgow, fantastic. Phenomenal.
John Lithgow as the evil, like, king is hilarious. And even, like, the little tiny things they have, like, I don't know who played the Gumdrop, but it's probably one of the people on our list we've already talked about. But that, like, shrill, like, scary voice, like, that sticks out to me immediately. And all of them, you're right. Like, people give shit to Mike Myers, but I think he's fantastic.
And then also, so I don't know if you've seen this, but they've recently shared Chris Farley as Shrek, because Chris Farley was the original Shrek. But it's pretty much just Chris Farley's voice, and I'm sure that would have been fine. But Mike Myers taking it and just putting the Scottish accent on worked perfectly.
Yeah, he's just fat bastard in the role, but it gives it a little bit of that cartoon-ishness to draw you in. Like, it doesn't make sense that he's in a swamp with that accent, but...
Toy Story, also a fantastic cast that I think almost all of them, if they aren't dead, have been in all four. But Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Don Rickles, and Estelle Harris are fantastic in the movies that they're in. John Ratzenberg, Wallace Shawn, Jim Varney.
Which one of those is Cliff Clavin?
That'd be John Ratzenberg, who is Pixar's go-to guy. He's in every Pixar movie.
So good.
Yeah. One that, the Wes Anderson folks love is the Fantastic Mr. Fox. The voice cast does carry that. You have a lot of his normal people, but George Clooney, Meryl Streep also in there. And then a recent animated movie. There are 2 out right now. 1 more is coming. But the Spider-Verse movies are not only brought to life by its amazing animation, but by these voice actors that you truly feel, you don't even feel like things are animated in those movies. You feel like everything is completely live action and right in your face.
That's more back to like the good officiating, where I feel like I'm just so immersed. And it's so weird in that movie too, because you're jumping, universes. You're jumping animation styles, and it couldn't feel more like you're flowing down a river. Like,
Yes.
just like it's like a smooth ride.
So Shamik Moore, Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali's in the first one, Brian Tyree Henry, Luna Laren Zelez, John Mulaney in the first one, Nick Cage in the first one, Catherine Hahn in the first one, Jason Schwartzman in the second one, and of course in the second one, there's just a million spider people.
Yeah, and I would put Jake Johnson in that Chris Pratt perfect, like just
Yes.
like just a level voice actor, because I didn't even know that was Nick Miller the first
Mhm.
time I saw the movie, but then once you hear it and it clicks, you're like, oh my god, like that's perfect.
And then just before we get to a little game that I have created, there's a funny voice acting thing that I've picked up on recently, and that is Lorenzo Music was the voice of Dr. Peter Venkman in the real Ghostbusters. So that is Bill Murray's character.
Mhm.
And I saw on IMDb he was there for roughly 78 episodes, but he was fired because Bill Murray felt that his character sounded too much like Garfield because Lorenzo Music is the voice of Garfield. Who does Bill Murray go on to voice in a movie? Twice.
No, twice. Like, is it? I have no idea.
Bill Murray was the live action voice of Garfield.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's
he
right.
had him fired for sounding too much like Garfield, and then he went on to eventually voice Garfield.
Oh, one last quick one that I forgot. That's one of my favorite all-time voice actors is
Mhm.
Keith David.
Go on.
He's awesome. He was Spawn. He was in Rick and Morty as the Obama guy. He was Goliath from the Gargoyles. He
Mhm.
just has that like evil. He could have played like Rat Ratigan. He has that like great like mischievous voice.
All right, so I'm going to now play. I have 8 here of famous people that voice things that I don't think you would have any idea who they are.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
You know I'm terrible at these games, but we'll try.
Okay, so the first one is who voiced Aladdin in Disney's Aladdin?
You're right. You aren't
Steve.
just some prize to be won. You should be free to make your own choice.
Steve
Oh,
from
Conan.
Full House.
That is the correct answer. It is Steve from Full House. He was the speaking voice of Aladdin, played Scott Winger, I believe his name is Wenger. I don't know what it is. Also, off of that, in a Goofy movie, I believe, what the H is his name? I'm blanking on it right now, but the friend from Boy Meets World is the son in the Goofy movie.
Okay. I see
I'm
that.
blanking. I just ruined
Sean?
this whole podcast. No, it's not Sean. It's Eric's friend. Eric's shorter friend.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember.
And speaking of Eric, actually, he is a great voiceover actor too. He does a lot of Disney stuff now, and he is the voice of Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That was his first voice acting role, actually.
All right, what do we got?
All right, let's go on to Thomas from Pocahontas.
This new world's gonna be great, John. I'm gonna get a pile of gold, build me a big house, and if any Indian tries to stop me, I'll blast him.
I know it. I just can't. I could never put something to it. Damn it.
The answer is Christian Bale.
What?
Yep, that's Christian Bale.
Wow. Okay, I can see it now. Yeah.
Of course, famously, Mel Gibson is the main character in that movie. This is just
Smith.
before Bale was a household name. Also, you always forget that Bale is British.
Mm-hmm. No, like every time you hear him, like that's one of the big shocking ones. Kind of like the dude from not The Americans, but the superhero movie, not movie, TV show.
Henry Cavill.
Nah, forget it.
All
right.
Bale also was a voice in The Boy and the Heron, and then he also played Bagheera in the live-action Jungle Book. Not the Jon Favreau one, but the Andy Serkis one that came out a couple years ago. Here now is Sally Brown from the Charlie Brown Show from the 80s.
How can he support a wife? He sleeps all the time.
No idea.
The answer is Fergie. That is Fergie.
No, it's not. From the Black Eyed Peas?
Fergie. Yes.
How old is she?
I don't know. Ageless, I suppose.
Jesus. That's crazy.
Other voice acting, she's been on The Cleveland Show, Madagascar 2, and Marmaduke. Are you ready for the fourth one? This is Clifford the Big Red Dog.
I'm Clifford, and these are my friends T-Bone and Cleo.
Yeah, but it's really okay. Now, where could he be hiding?
Oh man, is that an SNL
Famous
guy?
sitcom actor from the 70s.
Dick Van Dyke.
That's John Ritter.
Oh, I can. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The father in Scrubs, right?
The father in 8 Simple Rules for Raising My Teenage Daughter.
Yeah, he was also JD's dad.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that. But yes, from Three's Company, John Ritter. This is his only voiceover work or voice acting work
Yeah. I can
as
see that too.
Clifford the Big Red Dog. How about this one here? Luann from King of the Hill.
Mama's in jail. She was saving a quart of beer for before bed, and Daddy threw it out, and she went after him with a fork, and the trailer tipped over, and everything went upside down, and it's all going to be on Real Stories of the Highway Patrol.
I mean, I can picture it, but is it Reba?
It is Brittany Murphy.
That's Brittany Murphy? That
is
crazy.
Brittany Murphy, the voice of Luann on King of the Hill. She also, on that show, voiced Joseph Gribble, Dale's son.
Okay. All right. I didn't really love King of the Hill. I felt like anything that competed with The Simpsons wasn't my bag.
Let's go on to from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here is Shredder.
Your hairy little friend knows me as Oroku Saki. But you may call me the Shredder.
Okay, I started off hot with this by getting Steve, and I know that guy's voice. When you say it, it's going to kill me. I don't know who it is, though.
That would be James Avery, known as Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince.
Oh, you could 100% see that. He just kind of like, they tweaked his voice a little in post, but that's Uncle Phil.
How about this one? The Iron Giant. One more time.
Oh, that was it.
That's it. Let's just say he's also known for other one-word characters.
Oh, is it Vin Diesel?
That is Vin Diesel.
They got him to play that dude, like, that's crazy. Like, to get a paycheck for that is ridiculous.
So he got that one. Of course, he is I Am Groot as well. And then finally here, the 8th voice. I think you've done okay. Not terrible.
I got one.
But here is the last one. His final role of his life in Transformers as Unicron.
I am Unicron. This is my command. You are to destroy the Autobot matrix of leadership. It is the one thing, the only thing that can stand in my way.
So it's a dead guy.
Once again, dead. This was his final role, and he only had one other voice acting thing. He had done a ton of voiceover work. Only one other cartoon prior to this, though.
I have literally no idea.
Have you ever heard of Orson Welles?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's Orson Welles in his final role in Transformers.
That's legit crazy. You should put this out as like a little like YouTube video of like the least known voice roles, because that one's wild.
What that he would say? You know what I want to do? I want to put my toe in voice acting.
That's crazy. Didn't he read on air? Like, wasn't that his thing?
Oh yeah, no. So he had, like I said, a lot of voiceover stuff, a lot of stuff with radio commercials. There are some famous ones, and a character that we forgot to mention earlier, or a voice actor, would be Maurice LaMarche, who is the voice of the Brain from the Animaniacs, who was pretty much a spoof of Orson Welles when he had one of his flip outs reading a commercial.
That's pretty good. I like that. Oh, and a quick shout out to everyone on South Park. From Isaac Hayes to Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Like, they also do a million characters, and none of them are like all-time greats, maybe besides Carmen. Everybody else is kind of just like goofy little kid voice, but it's a show that like the voice acting is great.
Let's get into Maxac.
And Maxac could be anything. It could be a boat. And today, Billy, very quickly, I just caught either on VOD or AMC Plus. I don't know what it's on, but have you seen Late Night with the Devil?
No. What is
it? It is very interesting, and I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it, but it stars David Dastmalchian, who is trying to get ratings on Halloween, and he brings in one person that is anti, magic, occult, everything else, and then someone who is pretty much with a demon child, and things go awry.
And where is that again?
AMC Plus, question mark?
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I recommend it. It might be, I don't know if I would put it how high on my Letterboxd D on the year, but it's definitely interest-wise very interesting.
Yeah, so far I've pretty much just watched Ted and X-Men 97, so it'd be pretty easy to get on that list.
All right, so Billy, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at BillyD2411, and then they can find me and Dr. Joe of the TLDR podcast on Thursday nights. Not this Thursday because he's in Chicago, but yeah, on our podcast, I've heard it both ways.
How many more episodes do you guys have?
We have 2 seasons left and 3 movies, and they might be bringing the show back. So
just in time for when your show runs out, you'll have that.
Pretty much, yeah. They did it for us, I think.
If you had to move on to another show after this one wrapped up, what would you do?
Oh, we are going to, and we always say it's going to be Rizzoli and Isles.
Oh, Rizzoli and Isles. Because, of course, you guys do it for Psych. That's what your show is. You guys do Psych episode recaps.
Yeah.
Rizzoli and Isles is next?
Yeah, that USA kind of TNT world, I think that's where we're going to live.
I would recommend Franklin and Bash.
Ooh.
I liked Memphis Beat. But you guys can really do whatever you want.
Suits, The Closer, Siren, all those like 1-2
No,
minute
you
shows.
had your chance to do Suits last year when it was so hot on Netflix. Everyone was all over Suits.
I'm begging them to put Psych on Netflix because that's when like shows get launched because people are like, I got nothing to do, I'll watch it on Netflix.
I had never been asked so many times as people asking me, have I seen Suits? And when I say people, I mean my mom.
Yeah, it's a mom show.
Yeah. Have you seen Suits? Just like last time. No, I have not seen Suits. All right, so you can, write a review, go on Apple Podcasts, do whatever you got to do. You'll get a shirt from Watertown Sportswear. If you do so, catch us next week for a news dump, and I don't know what else. But Tuesdays are goose days. I abuse kangaroos. Tim Burton.
Please flip the cassette over to side B to continue the adventure.